Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Gitbag the Great here. Now, this podcast was recorded about a week and a half before I'm planning to upload it, hence the reason why some of the things me and Flashsuppressor talk about here might seem a little bit in the past tense. Also, I've got a new animated intro for this podcast which will play in a second, made by my friend Max, whose YouTube channel I'll put in the video description below. Anyway, enjoy the intro and the podcast, of course, and until next time, I'll see you guys. Enjoy! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Gitcast podcast with me, your most somewhat magnanimous host, Gitbag the Great.
And your intermittent special guest, Philip Sims.
Yeah, Phil, who, for the first time in probably like 3...
Better known as Flashsuppressor.
Yeah, as you can see there over his Chester-class cruiser, is once again our guest on the podcast for the first time in, what, like 3 episodes or something? 3 or 4 episodes or something like that?
Reckon so, yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, apologies if we're a little bit rusty. I mean, I've kept up my practice with the podcasting business by doing those, I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes of me just on my own. But once again, we've got a guest, and it's the only guest I've had so far whenever I've done guest episodes of this podcast, so not a huge amount of change there. But I mean, when was the last time actually that I did a episode of this podcast series with you on it?
It was before last summer, I think.
Really? Good God! Hang on a minute. I might try.
Yep.
I might try and check on my tablet. Bear with me a sec. So how have you been getting on in recent times, shall we say?
Oh, well, I've been doing pretty well, I think. I'm doing a postgraduate degree now at Sussex,
Yeah.
same as Gitbag.
Wait, you're doing it? What did you say it was again?
I'm doing it in environmental law.
Environmental law. Yeah. I knew it was environmental law. I just couldn't quite hear what you'd said.
Yeah, no, yes, it's quite tricky. I mean, shit, sorry. Okay. Yeah, no, it's a difficult course. I don't dislike it in terms of the content, but
it's just that it's challenging, right? Is that it?
it's very challenging, and I didn't know the full implications of what I was getting into.
Yeah.
I feel like I was made a bit of a fool of sometimes.
Yeah, I do hear sometimes about that happening to people with certain MA or undergraduate courses they might sometimes get on, and it's a sad case, but it does occasionally happen. Your best bet is just to stay calm and try and make the best of your situation. And
I think you're right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a bit of a victory to counterbalance some of the negative things that have happened to me in the last couple of weeks.
Like,
turns out that the initial stages of my attempt at going in for the assessment centre for the civil service or the Treasury has been successful.
oh wow, nice one.
Yeah, so I can do the full-on online testing hopefully relatively soon. I'm not sure whether I want to go for it, but it will be good practice for when I go for the proper civil service fast track again next year.
Yeah. Though, to be fair, we did have a discussion last time we met up in person about how hard as balls the application process for the civil
Yes, but
service
to be
is.
fair, the Treasury one is different because there are fewer questions in the situational judgment test.
Yeah.
And they actually give you a booklet with sort of all the information that you'd actually need to pass it.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just read it through, then I did it the next morning, and I was successful.
Yeah, I remember when I did it, I just couldn't do this situational judgment section. It was just way too hard.
Yeah, no, I had exactly the same experience, but the Treasury one, it Well, first of all, it's a sort of separate thing that you can do. It's a separate online application from the normal civil service,
Yeah.
and it's open for longer. And so far, it seems to be slightly easier. At least it's shorter, and they give you more information to help you with it.
So it's a bit more constructive, really.
Yes, it is. No, I definitely like it, and I think I'm going to go further just to have more practice doing these online selection things. And who knows, I may go for it. But yeah, returning to like my postgraduate degree, I chose it. I did it. I chose it really rushed because I sort of thought I desperately needed a postgraduate degree, and I didn't really see that many that I fancied. Certainly not in like history, at least not at Sussex.
Yeah.
I tell you one thing. I've been looking at the courses again now, and one new one that they're going to start that looks vaguely interesting is heritage studies. So it's like practical history, working in museums and archives and so on, while also doing your own research for your dissertation.
When are they starting that one?
That's a 2018 entry.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so obviously we're a bit late for that, and I don't think I'd really fancy it anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just I had a bit of a kick in the teeth last week when I went up to a careers evening in London for sort of different law firms, and basically, well, first of all, they weren't very helpful just generally, but also it turns out that I couldn't practice law anyway without doing a further year of study, then a 2-year apprenticeship in a law firm.
Yeah.
And the 2-year apprenticeship in a law firm, okay, that's expected. But I didn't realise, and nowhere was it made obvious, that getting this law degree would not be helpful. I mean, I sort of thought, ooh, that's great. There's a law degree that I can do in a year. I'll have an LLM. That sounds pretty good. It should open a lot of doors. But, like I say, I did it too rushed. I didn't do the appropriate research. And had I done so, I didn't want to be a solicitor really anyway. But I've sort of felt a bit hopeless about it for the past week or so.
Oh,
yeah. I'm feeling a bit better about it now. But like I talked to you about before now, I've been sort of having a bit of a difficult time of it. Having like anxiety and mood swings and difficulty eating. But I mean, everyone on the course is really supportive. It's just I kind of feel like I've been made a fool of, like I was arrogant and complacent. I feel like I've been lied to, more or less, in a way. Which obviously is not a good mindset to be in when you're doing a postgrad degree.
And how are you feeling now at this point in time, now that you've kind of gotten past that initial stage of anxiety after reassessing your aims and stuff?
I'm feeling a bit better, and I think having that bit of a success has helped, because at the end of the day, it's still a degree in law. It's a section of law that I'm always kind of interested in, and as well as that, there's also some basics about reading legal texts and so on, and that can only be helpful, particularly if I am going into a public service career. So yeah, all is not lost. But definitely a word of take this as a cautionary tale, dear listeners.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Do your proper research. Don't feel pressured into taking a postgrad degree.
Yeah, if any of you are thinking of like a particular career and there's like a particular type of course you need to go for it, probably assess it first and think about your own personal skills before like setting your mind on that, because I mean, it's not just a tale that's happened to you. I've heard it happen a few times before, and it very nearly happened to me, because I was very nearly gonna do my MA in law actually as well, but I ended up thinking one part of like, and to any new listeners to whom this may be a surprise, I've got mild autism, and one way that affects me is I'm not always the best in like sort of when I've got too much to do, and it kind of stresses me out and makes me feel a bit anxious, and I looked more and more into a career in law during this my summer holiday, and I realised myself that, like, just for me personally, a career in law probably wouldn't be that practical, and I probably wouldn't be able to deal with it personally. And I eventually decided to just continue on with studies in history and hopefully get a job in archiving, which I've become quite interested in actually.
That's really good. I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear you're sort of doing okay with it.
yeah,
Yeah, I just didn't really know that I wanted to pursue history as a career.
yeah. I mean, and I haven't just set my mind on archiving. I'm also open to doing reception duties, admin duties, as well as a bunch of other roles like trading and you know, working veterinary duties as well. So I've kind of
In
kept my
veterinary duties, did you say?
yeah. So I've kind of kept my options open as to like a few areas where I'm interested in, and I'd say that's a good idea of like searching for jobs is keeping a list of like preference and what you're interested in, not just setting it on like one topic.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I've been thinking a lot more about jobs and so on and things that I could be doing. Like, definitely do some research into jobs even before you do your postgrad degree is some good advice.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen think like you often find things in weird places. For instance, Hampshire County Council offer a sort of graduate placement for people who want to work in public office. And I've got a couple of friends from my politics course who are now working in county councils, and they seem happy enough.
mm. I think yeah, you just look in like different places and such, and just
Yeah.
it's going to take a while because it like requires a lot of effort to like search everywhere. But if you do it enough times and with enough variety and ambition, it'll eventually pay off.
Yeah, I'd agree to that as well. I mean, I've been looking at like publishing and so on, but it strikes me as being a difficult field to get into.
Yeah, it is. But to be honest with you, that's one I'd actually consider doing myself because I'm quite interested in possibly doing publishing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you'd need to do an internship
Oh yeah, totally.
at a publishing company, which isn't shouldn't be too difficult, particularly if you have like experience. You can, I mean, you've got your blogging that you can do, that you can show that you've
Yeah,
sort of got some
yeah,
independent agency,
but
even though it's not directly literature related,
no,
usually.
and hey, if anyone wants to check it out, I'll leave a link to that in the video description below.
Hooray!
Yeah,
Shameless plug.
yeah.
Okay,
Hey, fuck
now
off.
now that that's dealt with, yeah. Also, like working in a bookshop, I'm told is helpful, or just being a member of a literature society sometimes, because just saying you love books, it's publishing. Everyone who works there loves books. That means absolutely nothing.
Yeah. So like actually going out of your way to like volunteer some way or like participate and physically show your love for books would be a good way to go.
Yeah, no, I'd agree to that. But, I'm not considering it too seriously. I'm not desperate for it. What I still really, really want to do is work for the civil service. I want a public service career.
See, the thing is, as much as me and you have similar interests, I don't know if like maybe a career in civil service is the right thing for me. So I'm keeping my mind on things a bit more private, like sector, like say, trading, finance, archiving, or
Finance, how would that work? I mean, what qualifications would you need for that?
well, I'd probably have to do a trainee course first, to be honest. So that's probably one of the more unlikely ones, really. But and then I also thought about what's it called? Yeah, like you just said, publishing and editing, both of which I have very much interest in, and so I'd be very much into doing those if it came to it. And you made me think actually maybe I should join a literary society because I haven't done so yet in all my years of having studied at Sussex.
Yeah, no, extracurricular activities are important when you're doing a job application.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, most certainly. That's kind of why I decided to start volunteering at a a small museum in Hove, just so I can build up my CV just a little bit more and my experience of archiving.
Shit, I'm out. But at least I got a kill. Oh well. Yeah, no, what museum is it? Is it What museum is it?
It's the Regency Townhouse. It's a small museum mainly to do with preservation and fundraising. But it's an interesting little place because it's got a lot of good bits of like local history to do with Brighton, not just Brighton and Hove, but also the surrounding area of East Sussex. So they've got a couple of bits, I think, from like places like Lewes and Chichester and stuff like that. And most of their like street directories they've got to do with like Brighton and Hove and such.
Yeah. No, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, and I think they're like mostly they've got a lot of upkeep through donations and charity, and most of the people who work there are volunteers.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great thing to do. Yeah, I haven't really had that much like focus on like any kind of career other than public service. And the way you do that is fast track, not much else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the civil service? Did you say?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's like I think isn't there like one other way you can go about it that's like a bit more long-winded.
Well, in some cases, yes. Like they'll have specific posts advertised, and if you have relevant experience or training, you can sometimes go for them. But to be a general civil servant, you have to go through the fast track scheme.
Yeah.
Oh, cool! I got the badge for destroying an enemy that destroyed me. Basically, well, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if you can get that on more of the tanks as well. I think you can.
You
possibly.
can. I've had it a couple of times.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah. I think you have to like crush their tank with like yours after you've died or something.
Yeah, or else your shell is still in the air or you died or whatever. Yeah.
Or if you've set them on fire or something. So let's see. So yeah, I should also mention. I haven't got any. I should also mention if I'm keeping the gameplay silent. Hang on. So yeah, I should also mention that I'm keeping the gameplay on World of Warships here silent, so if anyone doesn't want to watch the footage, you can just put us on in the background and just go about your daily duties or whatever and just listen to the baritone rhythms of our voices in the background, just talking about all sorts.
Yeah, as we wax poetic.
Yeah, kind of, in a weird way.
Yeah. Tell you what, let's change the subject matter a bit. I think we've sort of covered, like, careers and jobs and degrees and stuff.
Yeah, it was a good sort of like initial sort of like. I mean, the thing is with these podcasts, I always like to either have a small funny story first or like a real hard hitting like icebreaker, and I think that was a good example.
That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good example of the latter, I think, really. So yeah, gotten off to a good start again, haven't we? So I guess the only other. Well, actually, parlaying off of that a little bit, what have you been doing at your societies recently?
Oh well, you're part Polish, or at least you have Polish ancestry.
Part
so
Polish, yeah.
You might be interested to hear. Have you ever heard of Lech Wałęsa?
A little bit, yeah.
Yes, for some context, he was the head of the movement for free non-state-run trade unions in Poland, the Solidarność Solidarity movement.
Oh yeah,
in,
yeah,
the Gdansk shipyards in
yeah,
Poland.
Yeah, now I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, and he. There have always been accusations that he wasn't entirely above board all the time, and some papers have recently emerged that prove that he was in fact coerced into being a spy for a while for the communist security forces.
Yeah.
And as a result of him, people got imprisoned and probably tortured by the regime. And yeah, it's a difficult thing we had a professor of politics who was part Polish come and give a talk about that, and it was really good.
Was this in the Politics Society?
Yes, this was in the Politics Society, yeah. It's the only sort of like sit-down society that I go to, other than the one that I go to with you sometimes, your sci-fi and horror film appreciation society.
Yeah.
Which I've enjoyed a lot whenever I've gone.
That's the first sort of society at Sussex I like really consistently started going to when I actually made a drive to start going to societies, and I think I started going to it like halfway through the third year of my undergraduate course. And I'm really glad I did because I've had some great times there from the middle of third year to up until almost halfway through the first year of my MA. Like, made some good friends, and I've started posting up film reviews of the films I've seen at that society recently on their Facebook page, which they've been very amicable about, actually. And I've got to say, the variety of like general topics they have on week in, week out has been very pleasing. It's like they usually have a lot of variety on offer as to like what their weekly topics are, and of course, keeping that within the realm of sci-fi and horror.
Yes, indeed. No, I've enjoyed it. I think it's 3 times I've been now.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, I got Citadel hit. Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I think you've been probably like what 3 or 4 times, something like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Other than that, like there obviously hasn't been much by way of scuba diving going on, so I haven't been doing that. I've
Yeah.
been going to kickboxing regularly enough, and that's still fun. Just to get a bit of movement in. Yeah.
I forgot. Is there a fee to pay for the kickboxing society? Because I know there is for a few of the sports related ones in
Yeah,
general.
pretty much all the sports-related societies, you have to pay a bit of money every time. But it's not unreasonable. Like you have a membership joining fee of £20.
Is that for the
22
is
something
that for
like
the
that.
kickboxing one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not too bad actually, because I have seen some.
Yeah, and then you pay like £3 every time you go.
Oh, okay, that's not too
Yeah,
terrible.
because you just have to they have to pay for their premises, obviously.
Yeah, so say for example, like if you go for 10 of the 12 weeks in a term, then that's like it's only like about 30 quid over a term. That's not too bad.
No, it isn't.
And to be fair as well, it's like even the introductory price, even that's still a lot sort of more reasonable than, or a lot cheaper at least than the prices for some of the other sports societies. Like I freaking love football, but the fee for joining the standard men's football society, I think, is something like 70, 80 quid or something like that.
Yeah, no, I know. And like for American football, I think it was like 90 quid.
Oh yeah, no, I've seen a few that go for even more than that.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, like scuba diving obviously is fairly expensive,
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
but the actual joining the club fee is just like £35 if you do it at the start.
Is that it?
Yeah, because usually sports societies in the first, like in Freshers Week in the first week of term, if you sign up early, get a you get like half price a lot of the time. So normally it's like 70 quid. In fairness.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is it from like most of them, because there's like probably about like just under 1.5 dozen sports societies in general at Sussex, aren't there?
Well, yeah, the sort of bigger sports societies, yeah. I'm thinking there might be slightly more. Like there's a dart society, and
I think there's a pool one as well.
yeah, probably.
Pretty sure there's also a basketball one too.
Well, I think Sussex is a fairly sporty university.
Yeah, it's not as there's I think there's only a few that I can think of that are genuinely more sporty. I think Brunel is definitely sportier because that's like one of the premier sports unis in the country, and BTW. If someone wants to study a course in either sports or business, Brunel might be a good place to at least research for one of your options.
Yeah.
Because they're very high rated in terms of business and sports courses, as far as I can remember. Yeah, apart from the Sci-Fi and Horror Society, I haven't really been to any other society meetings. I've joined up a couple, but I haven't attended them yet this term. I think that's just because recently most of my efforts have been aimed at either studying, attending the Sci-Fi and Horror Society, doing YouTube videos and blogs, or just looking for work.
Yeah. No, things have gotten a bit more serious this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I think, well, that's kind of a par for the parcel with doing a postgraduate course, because at that point, like, there's even more responsibility on your shoulders.
Yes, indeed. I haven't been bearing up too well under most of it, and I'm doing less than you are.
Well, I think it's kind of like I'm not. I think I do very much relate to you actually, because in that regard, because it's doing an undergraduate course is very much different to say doing a sixth form A level course, but even then, doing a postgraduate course, be it an MA or a PhD, is such a big sort of culture shock or
Yeah, it totally is.
shock of ethos to the system as compared to doing an MA. As compared to doing an undergraduate course. That there's always going to be a sort of like an adjustment period, even if you're someone who's more adept at doing that sort of thing, which I probably wasn't at the beginning of my MA. You're still going to have a bit of a rough patch, and like, this is me saying this to you, and I'd say arguably you're more studious than I am, so it if it can happen to you or me, like, don't feel bad about it. It's like nothing to feel ashamed of. But I would say this to you and anyone in that situation though, is just like, don't let that feeling control you, and just try and keep your chin up, and just try and make as much effort as you can, because to employers and like people like that, effort looks good, and especially if it's in that general area.
Yeah, no, I totally agree to that. Yeah, just like I say, it's kind of difficult to feel motivated and so on, particularly when you're worried that you've made a mistake. It's actually kind of a bad thing that you get such a big discount and so on when you do your postgrad degree the year after you finished your undergrad at the same university, because that kind of prompts you to make a rash decision.
Yeah,
in a way.
I suppose it is, and there's also like, if you're doing like an MA or a postgrad or any postgrad of any sort at the same uni where you did your undergraduate, when you usually do that, there's usually more of an option for like alumni funding, and I wasn't eligible for it, unfortunately, because I did my MA part time. But for those who do their MAs full time, which is a fair old lot of people, then there's a decent amount of money to be earned from doing an MA and getting like alumni funding and graduate scholarships. So like, if you do decide to do it there rather than somewhere a bit elsewhere, then it can leave some people ending up making somewhat rash decisions to jump into just doing one at their same uni. And I mean, that might not necessarily always be a bad thing, because I feel even though I'm a born and bred like southeast Londoner, I do feel like I have a bit of familiarity now with Brighton and Hove and the surrounding area.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I'm nearly a Brightonian now, basically. Yeah.
Really?
Well, kind of. I mean, let's see now. Well, I study at the University of Sussex. I do park run in Preston Park.
Yeah.
I shop at the open market and the farm park shop up in Falmer. What else do I do?
You know what? I've still got to go to the open air market in near the train station. I still haven't done so yet, though.
Yeah, no, it's actually, well, the only place I ever buy anything from there is like the fresh fruit and veg stall, because it's quite cheap and good quality.
Yeah, I will. I think I'll try and make an effort to go there sometime in the future when I have a bit more money. But I have been meaning to go there for some time, and what I really like the sound of is the couple of cheese stalls they have there. One of which I've heard does a really nice blue Stilton.
Yes. I tell you one thing. We are thinking of the open market, right?
Yeah, the one that
down near the level.
yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I haven't been to the cheese store. I tell you one that's good though, the honey shop. They have all these different types of honey.
Oh yeah, my great aunt told me about that one. She
And then
said,
there's a hummus and falafel
oh
place.
yeah, she told me about that as well. She said they were both really good places.
They
Yeah.
are really good, but the hummus and falafel place is pretty expensive. But
Oh,
you know, you get what you pay for.
yeah, that's kind of like what I remember from when I sometimes in the past back when I was studying at secondary school. Like sometimes I go and do a bit of stuff at the Blackheath Farmers Market, and most of the stuff there at most of the stalls there was like pretty good, but some of a few of the stalls were pretty bloody expensive, and you had to be like very proportionate with your spending there, I guess.
Yeah,
Not that it wasn't a waste, because all the food that I ever got from there was like usually at the very least very solid, so never felt like I was wasting it. Well, most of the time I felt like I wasn't really wasting any money, so like um
that enemy cruiser has foundered. I'm going to blast him to smithereens.
though I was just going to say it's like such a stereotype as a Southampton fan saying that they're now a Brightonian after having studied at at the University of Sussex. Well, mind you, I mean, it's not uncommon really, actually, because since studying at like the University of Sussex, I've met loads of Southampton fans, including you.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I suppose it's sort of in the area. I mean, it's only a sort of like 3 hour trip along to Southampton by train.
That's still a fair distance, though. Like 3 hours on train. Like
Yeah, no, it is a surprising distance, but well, I suppose it's halfway along the south coast, isn't it?
yeah, about that. I mean, like I remember like during the Christmas of 2014 when I went to visit my mate uh, Sam, who some of my viewers may know more commonly as Telescuffle. When he was staying in first year halls at the University of Bournemouth at the time, and that was like a 4.5 hour journey, I think it was, and I had to get like 3 different trains. I mean, it was a good journey actually. I had a lot of fun on that particular journey from Brighton Station to Bournemouth Central, but I mean, yeah, it was still fairly long actually for what was essentially just a 2 or 3 leg journey. Still would do it again though, because it's actually a very nice train route, that one, and Bournemouth's a really nice place. I would actually visit again in the future.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've been down that way myself.
Yeah, we also want to at some point in the future try and go to the Vitality football stadium in Bournemouth, because it's so small compared to every other stadium in the English Premier League. I think it is the smallest stadium in English football. No, not English football. Sorry, the English Premier League at this point in time, which is pretty believable, really, when you see that it only holds about 11,000 people. And I think like the second smallest in the league at the moment is like, I think it's Huddersfield, who still hold like about you know uh, about 2 dozen thousand. Well, like that's probably a bit of an overestimate actually, but like they still hold like a fair bit more, I think. I probably sound like I'm talking out my arse here. Well. So
Sorry, I can barely hear you. There's so much. Okay, now I'm dead. Now I can hear you again.
you can probably try.
Yeah, I
Like,
just dodged like 8 torpedoes simultaneously that were coming at me from different angles.
oh yeah, well, I did see that, but I wasn't like immediately clocking that was why you weren't sort of talking as such. Still, you did fairly well to survive for that long in front of like 4 destroyers and a cruiser.
Yeah. Oh, well, I took a couple of them with me too. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, this is a stressful time in life.
I think it's always a stressful time when you do something new. I mean, I remember that was how I was when I first started off my undergraduate course, and comparatively, an undergraduate course is certainly not as hard as a postgrad one.
be it an MA or a
PhD. And so
Yeah, definitely.
I
I
think
mean, yeah, I mean, it's always different, isn't it? Because an undergrad, it's an adventure. You're moving away from home for most people for the first time, and you've got a 3-year hitch, and you're at university. You have so much freedom. You're doing new things that you never thought you'd do. Whereas postgrad, you're at the same university. You have less time, less freedom. It's a career move that is more calculated.
yeah, I think that's kind of part of the maturing process because I remember a tutor saying to me some time ago. I think it might have been in sixth form. They said like more than anything, you'll learn to really value your time at university because in different parts and to different extents you'll make friends, you'll try new foods, you'll discover more self about you'll discover more about yourself, like in whatever way, be it sexually, like politically, ethically, and personally even, and they said that that's the most important thing. And it might seem like you're like really upturning your whole life, but like there's no need to like feel afraid. And they said that happens to differing degrees and in different like levels of maturity when you're doing postgraduates as well. So I think
Yeah,
it's
you may well be right. I should try and look. I should try and think more positively. Maybe it didn't turn out quite the way I wanted it,
yeah. I mean,
but that doesn't mean it can't still be a great adventure.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like even if it might not seem like necessarily a positive thing at first, though, I'd still say try and see it as like an opportunity to maybe learn a bit more about yourself. Like, for all you know, things you might learn about yourself might not necessarily be entirely positive. And I certainly learned that about myself. Like, I've certainly learned that I'm not as skilled in some areas as I thought I was, but in the long run, I think that ends up helping me a lot because it makes me realise what I'm good at and what I'm bad at. And it's not comfortable to tackle those things, certainly. So I can understand why you're feeling a bit anxious, and I definitely felt like that a few months ago when I was about to start my MA. But you just need to keep your chin up and just keep making the effort and just doing what you can. I'm not saying like completely burn yourself out and just go at it full pelt, because then you will just crash and burn. But
Yeah.
you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. I mean, ultimately, it's not actually too big of a deal because, it's 1 year out of what is still a very young life.
Yeah, or 2 years.
And it will give me skills.
Yeah, or 2 years
like
for me because I'm
reading
doing mine
legal
part-time.
texts, reasoning legally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I say, it's difficult not to feel a little resentful and a little bit of self-recrimination when you feel like you've made a bit of a mistake.
Yeah, I totally get that, and I think it's like fair enough and reasonable. But and I certainly felt like that about let's say like 3 or 4 months ago. But I kind of like realised that the more I thought about that, the more I was becoming less productive, and the more I looked at it more in an analytical way than a personal characteristical way, the more I thought, right, I'm learning a bit more about what my adaptability and skills just generally are like, and as a result, I've been able to more clearly distinguish what kind of career I want to go for, or just generally what I want in life. And like I said, it's not always comfortable doing that, because sometimes you might find things about yourself that you don't like, or you might crushingly realise you might not necessarily be as good at something as you thought you were. But it's all a part of growing, and growing can sometimes be uncomfortable, I think.
I think you're right, but I think we can agree on one thing.
What?
That we wouldn't trade our time at Sussex for anything else.
Oh no, certainly not. I think as hard as it has been, it's still helped me learn a lot about myself and what I see in people and what I think people see in me and everything like that. And I mean, I don't know how you see that in
I totally agree. It made me a much better person than I was before.
Yeah, I'd say the same for me as well. And I mean, everyone I guess experienced that in different ways to different extents. But
I was fortunate. I was very fortunate that I got, because I was actually planning to go to a different university.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say I got into Sussex through clearing, because I'd had a really unexpected set of A-level results. It surprised everyone. It surprised me. It surprised my teachers. It surprised my parents. And I don't think I would have been as happy at the university that I was supposed to be going to.
What was it? Was it that you didn't get good enough A-level results?
Yeah, I didn't get good enough A-level results.
Oh wow! So
Yeah.
by bizarrely by like not doing well enough to get into that particular uni, you actually ended up probably benefiting yourself in the long term.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think I am much healthier and happier here at Sussex than I would have been up in, well, like Glasgow, basically.
Well, I mean, yeah, but have you seen how many fucking chip shops there are in Glasgow? Like, I would have weighed like fucking 25 stone if I got up there.
Well, not necessarily. You have to do a lot of walking around because it's not a campus university. They've got buildings spread throughout the city.
Yeah, it's more like the University of Brighton, isn't it? Where they've got several campuses rather than just being concentrated on one area.
Yeah, precisely. You know, I mean, on the one hand, at least in first year, it kind of got a wee bit claustrophobic at Sussex, but yeah, you could always escape to sort of some nice areas in the surrounding countryside and so on. And yeah, like, you know, things don't always work out the way you expect them to, but that's no reason not to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, it's an LLM. Not many people can claim to have one of those.
Yeah, because when you think about it, there's a lot of like you get fucking just publication of you know, stories in regards to like people working in law, but it's actually I wager there's probably not as many people working in law as the general public probably think there is.
Well, yeah, there's a fair few, and you don't actually need a law degree to work in law. You know, if you've got like a relevant humanities subject, you can apply to many law firms to sort of give you like the 2-year training contract, and then they'd pay you to do the law practice certificate, the LPC, which is what you need to actually do it, which takes a year. But, you know, if it's what you want to do, because, I mean, I definitely do not want to be a solicitor or a barrister. I know that much. You work really long hours. It's sort of quite crushing. It can be monotonous sometimes. I mean, in some cases, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's absolutely great and they wouldn't want to do anything else, but it's not for me. I want an administrative and sort of policy kind of role, basically.
Yeah.
I want more variation. I want to sort of continue learning all the time, and that's the main reason I want to go for the civil service.
Oh my god.
What?
I've just looked at the torpedo arcs on this new British cruiser I just bought, and they're really bleeding narrow.
Dear.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, it's like that's part of what I think about looking at yourself and like what your personal skills are. If you think like going generally into a career in law, or specifically into a career as a barrister, or you know, maybe into, you know, something else that you might still be interested in that might not necessarily be into law. It's always a you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the main thing that people should look to do is just to make something of themselves, and just try and make a good career for themselves. And if that might be in a career path that they're not initially thinking about, then oh well, it's like at least you made a good career for yourself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to lie. I've had a bit of a setback with it, and I felt kind of down. But, you know, you just got to grit your teeth and make the best of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well. Okay, sorry, I just kind of went away for a moment there because I needed to plug my laptop in. And that's also why I set my ship to go full reverse for the moment. But I'm on my way to join the fight now.
Yeah, I've just realised we've just run into 2 battleships as well.
Yeah, no, I heard some sort of crunching and scraping. I've
Yeah,
lost
yeah. That
like
was
19 health. Not too bad.
yeah, that was because a destroyer on our team decided it would be a good idea just to ram into you,
Yeah,
and he's just done it to me as well.
shit.
I don't think he's a very good driver.
No. Are there enemy ships in the fog bank?
Not in the one immediately in front of us, but there are in the one behind it though. So there's a destroyer right there. So I think we should probably try and get off the serious topics, otherwise this will probably be one of the most.
Yeah, totally. All right.
Probably be one of the most.
Non-serious topics.
It'll probably end up being one of
Okay.
the most dour episodes of the podcast series yet.
Yeah, I know. Tell you what. Okay, favorite Star Trek series. I've been converted. I love Voyager.
Wait, when did that one come out again?
It was like late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, is that the one with Captain Sisko?
No, that's Deep Space Nine.
Oh, sorry. The Voyager, is that the one with the female captain?
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, God, I can't remember what her name. Phil, you just crashed into me.
Sorry.
Oh,
I know. Tried to take evasive action.
Oh, you donut.
Blame the fog.
Yeah, just blame it on. Just. So yeah, I think I did watch Voyager a couple of times when I was younger, but I was always more into the new generation with Jean-Luc Picard as the captain, or like you said, Deep Space Nine with badass Captain Sisko.
Yeah, I love badass Captain Sisko. And what I love most about Deep Space Nine and Voyager and so on, certainly as opposed to my least favourite series, which is actually The Next Generation, is that they're not as judgmental about it. And it shows that, because Captain Picard and so on, they're always so judgmental about what the past was like, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they just, oh shit, I just got torpedoed by that destroyer.
Wait, which one? The Allied one or our one?
Our one.
Oh, for goodness sake. What has he done so far this match? He's rammed into both of us and torpedoed you and almost got you killed.
And I'm dead.
Goodness sake. I can see what you mean with the sermonizing thing about the Next Generation. I don't think it's necessarily as bad as in the series though as it is in probably a couple of the films.
Yeah, I know, and I like Voyager because I just like the characters. They're so much more engaging and sympathetic. I mean, I will admit Captain Picard is cool, but ultimately so is Janeway. Really, she's always sort of competent and on the ball. She's just like Picard in that way, but she's different because she's a lot more sympathetic, and it's like she still enjoys being a starship captain.
Yeah, I think
she has that sort of love of exploration that Captain Picard kind of didn't.
I think, if anything, I do think Captain Picard had probably the best supporting cast, so that's kind of why I think people tend to remember The Next Generation the most. It's not just because of Patrick Stewart's admittedly pretty good performances as Jean-Luc Picard, even if the character himself probably rubs people up the wrong way, but also because the supporting cast around him is also pretty decent.
Yeah, they were decent for the most part. I mean, I can't remember the name of the chap who plays Commander Riker. Data is a good character, definitely. Data and Riker and Worf. They're good characters, but Dr. Crusher and Counselor Troy, I didn't like those, but I can hardly think of a single Voyager character who I don't like.
Especially Wesley Crusher. He's probably my least favourite character in all of The Next Generation.
No, for me that's got to be Counselor Troy. She is the most useless person on the ship.
Oh, there's also that scene in that one episode where she gets turned into a cake as well, and then almost gets cut up by Data.
Oh my goodness! I haven't seen all of the Next Generation episodes.
It's an interesting episode to say the least.
But right, yeah, no, I like Yeah, I like sort of Voyager. I like Seven of Nine. I like Commander Chakotay, actually.
Oh, Seven of Nine was like one of my big childhood crushes. Actually, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I can understand why. I mean, not just because she's wearing the sort of sexy bodysuit, but just her sort of attitude and so on. I really quite like it, and I like the whole story about discovering what it is to be human.
Yeah, and like
Actually, one of my favourite characters is the Doctor, the emergency medical hologram.
yeah,
He is really good because he's kind of like Data, only instead of sort of discovering what it is to be human, he actually already knows what it's like to be human. He has a soul, he has interests, and he sort of acts independently, and he has emotions. But he has to sort of learn how to sort of deal with not being physical and other people not treating him the same way. And actually, my favourite episode is the one where he and Seven of Nine nearly sort of have a romantic relationship.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite an interesting sort of diametric opposition of the two. Is like he's trying to learn how to um, be human in a sort of physical sense. She's learning how to be human in a metaphorical sense. It's quite interesting, actually.
Yes, it is. And there's also, and you know, any Star Trek series lives and dies by sort of those little interactions and those what does it mean to be human stories.
Yeah.
And I think, well, actually, Discovery has the least amount of those from what I've seen so far.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
But I don't. But I sort of feel actually, yeah, I sort of feel that was a little bit lacking, or at least it always rang a little bit hollow in the Next Generation.
I think the Next Generation was more of a adventure story. So whereas like probably Deep Space Nine was probably more of a introspective series with slightly more deeper looks into characters. Because I also remember the Next Generation having a huge cast, so it's like
Yeah, it totally did.
so it's like it's not entirely the fault of the actors or the directors in the Next Generation, because sometimes they, and this is going to sound like a cop out, they did. I do think sometimes I do think they had a little bit too much to work with, so unfortunately they weren't always able to develop characters and arguably make hope and theoretically make the series a bit better by having the chance to do that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Although I will say that, as much as I do genuinely think the Next Generation gets a bit much hate sometimes, and as much of a suave, cool person the captain in Voyager is, I still have to say that out of any captain in any of the series, Cisco is still my favourite.
No,
just
I suppose I can understand why that is.
You just take
I
one.
haven't seen enough of Deep Space Nine to really know.
You just take one look at the guy, and you just know he doesn't mess around, and he's just like tough as nails.
Yeah, and yet he still has a sensitive side with his son.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say though before oh god, I can't remember the name of it. There was this one Star Trek series though that came out in like the mid to late 2000s that I absolutely hated. And I'm not talking about the recent Discovery series. Like, was it Enterprise?
Yes, it's Enterprise.
Oh,
I will actually
yes.
defend that one.
God, yeah, it was Enterprise. I'm sorry, I don't like Enterprise. It's just,
Why? But it gets a lot better later on.
It does, but the first like 2.5 years of the series for me were just.
And it ends absolutely appallingly.
Yeah, the first 2.5 years weren't great. It only really picks up, so I felt, towards like the end of season 3, and then, yeah, like you said, like the last, 2 or 3 episodes, pants.
Yeah. It was just an insult to the actors and the cast and the fans that the last episode was basically about Riker and the sort of Next Generation crew shoving shoving all of the like Enterprise cast into a back seat for this kind of ego stroking final episode.
Yeah, which is like
After we got to know them,
which is
I mean,
like
I think, yeah, I like it because it was a lot more. It was closer to hard sci-fi, and it was a lot easier to empathize because, you know, their world was a lot more similar to ours still at that time.
I know. I just still don't like Enterprise generally in terms of quality, and like you said, the direction wasn't the best, especially at the beginning and end.
Yeah, I understand that, and you know, much as I mean, I think a lot of people find that Captain Archer is the least inspiring starship captain.
Oh, he's so boring.
At first, I would agree with that, but in sort of the later series, he gets a lot more to work with, and I think the actor does a good job of doing this sort of.
No, I know what you're saying, but it's just like
Yeah.
it's a bit difficult to get invested in that when the poor sod. I mean, admittedly, it's not all his fault, but it's like you don't really get invested in the character for like the first 2.5 seasons until which point, like, you know, the series is almost like about half over.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand people having their difficulties with Enterprise, but I've seen a couple of episodes and liked it fine. What I disliked a little bit is the fact that they are seemingly the series that relies most on just having some barely distinguishable nasal prosthetics to signify who the aliens are. You know,
Yeah.
in the original series, it didn't really matter that much, but in Enterprise, that kind of really bothered me because, you know, Voyager has so many distinctive alien designs, as does the Next Generation, and definitely Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, that's something actually. I would say as much as I think personally that Discovery is the worst Star Trek series by far. At the very least, it has some interesting designs, and some of the set designs are visually appealing and quite interesting. But yeah, the alien designs in Enterprise aren't great.
No, they're not. And I actually thought that the thing about Discovery that would annoy me was the redesign of the Klingons.
I don't think.
But actually, it doesn't, because I think it looks really great.
Yeah, I don't think the.
And it actually sort of captures what it's supposed to be like, because, you know, they're supposed to be a totally alien and highly hostile civilization. And, you know, it's like, if we actually did come across an alien race, we would have next to nothing in common with them, and our first encounters with them would be really tense.
Yeah, I think. I think. Yeah, objectively, I think Discovery's worse, but like, I think it does have a fairly decent perspective of like human and alien contact, at least in the initial stages.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've seen a lot of the Klingons in all the different series. We sort of understand a lot about their culture, whereas here specifically we're not supposed to understand anything about them.
Although,
Yeah, so I think it was good, but I'm not going to watch the rest of the series, to be honest.
I didn't really like it that much. I actively disliked it quite a bit. And the thing is, I wanted to give it a chance, like I do with most things I see, for the first time. You know, like I did with you know, the new Ghostbusters film. And while I wouldn't say that was a good film, it was still at least competently made for the most part. And I'd also say that of the Dungeons and Dragons film, which was awful, but it was like, it at least gave me a good laugh.
Yeah.
And it gave me some great memories of Jeremy Irons as well. Even though his acting performance in that, it can be described only really as off the wall, batshit insane.
Yeah.
And basically hamming it up so much that he's a roast leg of pork. So honestly, if anyone wants a really good laugh on like a bad acting performance, go watch Jeremy Irons' performance in the Dungeons and Dragons movie from I think it came out in like 2000 or 2001. It is certainly not a good movie, but it's a hilarious film in how daft it is.
Yeah, I'd agree to that.
Have you ever seen it in full, actually?
I have not seen it in full. No, I've seen the Nostalgia Critics review and I've seen clips,
Yeah.
but I haven't actually been able to get my hands on it properly.
And also, let's not forget the fact that Bruce Payne plays the main muscly henchman, and for some reason, for the whole film, he's wearing purple lipstick.
Yeah,
Even though it makes him look positively ridiculous. In fact, his performance is really quite daft as well. Actually, and that kind of brings me on to something like talking about like acting, films, sci-fi, or like fantasy or whatever. Like, I don't know about you, but I always find something that's intending to be good, like Dungeons and Dragons. I always find that to be a much more and that ends up to be like really bad, but only by like accident and lack of skill. I find something like that to be always more enjoyable than, say, something like the Sharknado films, which are just bad by design and just suck the energy out of you.
yes, no, I totally agree with that. Definitely, good intentions can make up for a lot in a film.
Yeah, it's like if the intention is right and the sort of you're putting the effort in, then at the very least you've at least tried to make a good film, even if it's been a universal disaster, uh, despite your best efforts.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's sort of insulting to the audience when they've just very obviously put no effort in at all.
I mean, what would you say is your favourite so bad it's good film?
Um, I kind of have a soft spot for the live action Scooby Doo films, particularly the second one. Because, it had some creative ideas, didn't necessarily work out, but, they tried.
Jesus, those films just. I mean, I never really liked Scooby Doo anyway, but those films were. They even insulted me, and I'm not a fan of the series, so. God.
Yeah. Nice, got a kill.
What would it be for me? I think. For me, it's got to be a real. It's got to be a real toss up between The Room, the first Dungeons and Dragons movie, Mindhunters, and the Leprechaun movies.
I've never heard of the Leprechaun movies.
Oh, they are a treat. It's basically a series of Halloween sort of themed horror movies where the main villain of the entire series, like the series version of Jason or something,
Yeah.
is basically a psychotic leprechaun who's several hundred years old and attacks anyone who tries to even just take a sniff of his gold. It is just bad, and they've made. I think they made the first film, then they made like a couple of sequels, then they made Leprechaun in the Hood, then they made Leprechaun in Space, and then they made a second Leprechaun in the Hood film. And it's just pants, but it is quite funny. And then for anyone else who might not know, Mindhunters, that's another sort of trying to be scary but really isn't film, where basically a bunch of junior FBI investigators are set on an island to simulate a mock manhunt. But then it turns out there's a real life killer on the loose on the island, and they starts picking them off one by one. Sounds interesting, but it's genuinely a completely pants film that somehow manages to elevate itself despite having a really bland acting display from all of its cast, really. It's actually really weird. It's got like a really bland cast and soundtrack, but it's actually quite funny in how terrible it is.
Yeah, well, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll see it one of these days. Yeah, I also have a kind of a soft spot for the second of the live-action Smurfs films.
Why?
I don't know. There's something sort of kind of sweet and innocent about it. And it lacked this sort of audience-insulting lack of effort that was in the first one. And it just sort of strikes me as sort of being representative of everything that's wrong with these sort of Hollywood remakes of sort of European things.
Yeah, but
they just set it in what is to Americans a fairly exotic location and hope for the best. And all the rest of it. But the CGI was okay, I found.
Yeah, but generally speaking, I still would not recommend seeing it at all, really.
No, I wouldn't really recommend it either. But it's just one of these sort of wee irrational pleasures I have.
I mean, it's like sometimes you watch films that are not that great, and on the odd occasion they're so daft that they're good that you might feel like recommending them. But then there are the couple now and again that are so daft you just feel like I'm just gonna keep this to myself, and that's how I kind of felt actually with the live action GI Joe films.
Oh yeah, I did have kind of a soft spot for that one too.
Yeah, I mean they're not. I don't think they're really that bad films because I did at the end of the day actually quite enjoy both of them, and I'm glad I've seen both of them, especially the first one. Um, but yeah, no, they're not. Objectively, they're not great films. They are just very, very entertaining popcorn films, I do think, though. Ah, yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to bring up in this podcast, actually?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll end it after this one because it's getting pretty late and I need to call my family and so on.
Yeah,
But
sure. Actually, one thing I wasn't thinking of asking, in hindsight of the hiatus you had from appearing on this podcast series,
yeah.
are you thinking of setting up your own YouTube channel in some point in the future? Because I know me and you have spoken about that in private in the past as well.
Yes, I have. I mean, anybody who has any thoughts sort of in the comments, much appreciated. I was thinking that I could do like a book review channel. There are a number of those already, but none really concentrate on sort of the kind of books that I read most of the time. They're mostly sort of young adult fiction books that they review.
Mm.
Yeah, and I sort of read a lot of non-fiction. I read a lot of historical fiction. I read, a lot of science fiction, sort of more, and a lot of sort of classic stuff as well sometimes. So, sometimes I just think I might want to share my views on them, and if anyone would be interested in that, why not?
Yeah.
And it'll be another thing to put on the CV because I've already done a lot when it comes to films for the Scuba Diving Society. I made those.
I was going to say actually, have you set up the channel already?
No, I haven't.
All right. Well, tell you what. When you do, be sure to send me the link so I can at least give it a shout out in a couple of videos after you've set it up.
Okay, I will. But I'm going to need to probably get myself a slightly better camera and so on, at least eventually. So
yeah,
it may still be a while.
Yeah. So yeah,
until I guess it's properly set up.
So in the meantime, if anyone does have any suggestions, be sure to leave them in the comments section below, like I always say it, for general suggestions at the end of my videos. And this time, it's not just for me; it's for Phil as well, of course, for any ideas he might have for his channel. Although, to be fair, that being said, I do have 3 channels myself, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, it's been good. And it's good to hear that you're feeling a bit happier now, and that you've been able to get just a bit of stuff off your chest.
Yeah, no, being able to vent to people is good sometimes. Like, I had a really nice evening yesterday. One of my friends from Politics Society invited me to come back to her place, and we had some really nice homemade vegetarian spaghetti bolognese with some garlic bread while we were watching a really fun, high-budget Bollywood film called Queen, which is sort of a young adult journey of self-discovery kind of film about a young Indian woman. And it's really quite good.
Isn't that what most Bollywood films are like?
Yeah, but this one was a little bit more subtle about it, and it was actually quite touching.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, granted, there's always an exception to every rule. To be fair, I've seen clips at least of a couple of Indian Bollywood action films that look so ridiculous. I was just thinking, oh my god, I've got to see that.
Yeah. But to be fair, these kind of slice of life things are where they really excel.
Yeah.
Because actually, them and they really hammer home some pretty good emotions, and it's really great when, like I did yesterday, you have an Indian person there to sort of give you bits of trivia that really help you enjoy the film.
Alright, it's just give you a bit of context and a bit of like cultural
Yeah,
perspective.
and also they like help with the translation a bit because the subtitles aren't always that accurate.
Yeah, and
And
it's
a lot
like
of the jokes like get left out and so on.
when me and you are watching something to do with German culture, and it's like you're just like calling over to me and helping me understand certain things.
Yeah, no, I mean it's always fun when you can do that. Yeah. Anyway, I am getting fairly tired, but it's been absolutely great,
Yeah,
and I
no,
hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have.
yeah, and likewise to you, and of course likewise to everyone watching this at home. And if and when Phil does set up a YouTube channel, I'll be sure to link it in a few of my videos, and definitely, of course, the next episode of the podcast after he sets up his um, channel, I'll definitely reference it in that as well. And as always, if you did like this podcast, leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you want to show any extra support to me, check out all my links in the video description below to my other YouTube channels, my social media platforms, and everything. And yeah, like Phil said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you and until next time, be sure to stay safe, have fun with whatever you're doing. Don't do anything we wouldn't do, or at least me. And until next time, I've been Gitbag the Great with
Flashsuppressor.
and we'll see you guys next time, hopefully in the next episode of the Gitcast podcast, and of course on the battlefield. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.